right. How's everyone doing? Hey,
Yeah, just fine.
good, good. Well, appreciate everybody that was able to come today. We're going to record the meeting right now, and I just want to confirm with Lindsay that it's being recorded. Correct, Lindsay?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Thank you, Lindsay. All
All right.
Okay, if you could mute your
Mute your
side.
side.
Thank you. Mute your side, and what we'll do is I think the best way to have a really productive time, and that's my hope, is that today would be a productive session together, is if we um, present one of the questions that have been asked, and I'll present the question. I'll give a response to that question. We'll open it up for discussion about that question. Everyone is welcome to add a question into the chat box. I've got the group chat here. Everybody can see that. What we'll do at the end of the session is we will take the recorded video and we'll distribute it out to all Residence Club owners so that they have this as a record. We'll also take the questions that were listed in the chat, and I think this is possible to do, Lindsay, that you can copy a chat at the end of a Zoom. You can convert it to a Word document. I want you to attach that to the email or provide it embedded in the email so that everyone has all the video and all the written commentary, and then they can do that. Okay, so that's my hope, is that we do a question answer discussion, and I'd like, because there's quite a few questions, and I want to get through as many of them as we can. So if we can limit the discussion, sometimes I might have to say, hey, this discussion requires, more communication outside of this meeting, and I'll send that to you. And we're not going to say that it's a done deal, but we're going to say that we're going to put a pin in it, or we're going to extend the conversation to another time. Okay. Is everyone on board with that? Okay, I appreciate that. Let me just start. This is the first time that as the Residence Club that we've gotten together, and maybe the first time that some of you guys have seen each other's faces, or have seen my face. And I think on one hand it's great to be together. On the other hand, I'm sorry that it's taken until now. And so I'm going to first of all start with just an apology of communication, that I will own that. I've could have done a much better job of communicating to you guys, and you deserve more in communication than what has been provided to you. And ultimately that comes to me. There's some pieces of communication that happen in the field level or from staff, but ultimately it should have come from me. And so I just want to start with that. No excuses, no defense, and just say, please accept my apology for that. Because when we first started thinking about the Residence Club and what it could be, there was a real desire for the Residence Club to be a strong piece of community that would reflect the same culture that you see in Carlton Landing, where people felt welcome, they felt appreciated. And a lot of that just has to do with community. You can give people the right structure, or the right home, or the right try to give the right experience, but if there's not community to go along with that, that's rooted in good communication, then it strips away the value from the other pieces. And I'll just be the first to say that's ultimately that comes back to me. And so please accept my apology for that. Second thing I want to do is just give you guys frame the conversation in this way. We're going to talk about expectations. We're going to talk about information. And we're also going to talk about how the right information drives the right expectations. And sometimes if we don't have the right information, or we're basing something on assumptions, then we don't have the information that we need to have the right expectations, and so we're going to be disappointed. And there's in any real estate transaction, you have two sides of it. So you have the expectations of the developer and you have the expectations of the owner. And in a fractional real estate deal, it's complicated because there's a lot of folks that are involved, and it's more complicated than just one seller and one buyer. In this case, you have an ongoing relationship with the developer, and you have now 21 owners on the fractional side, as well as individual owners that are whole unit owners. To further complicate it, we have layers of declarations and bylaws and governance structures that we put in place, which are really overkill for three condos that are fractionally owned by 21 people. I mean, it's not convoluted, it's clear, but it's a complex and very legal structure for only 3 units. So let me back up and just spend a couple minutes on expectations and what the plan was initially, and then we'll get into the questions. And like I say, if you have any questions that you want to add to the mix, and let me actually, before I get into this, well, let me tell you the expectations and the original intent first, and then we'll read the questions that I've got. When we first laid out the plan for Carlton Landing in 2008, even at that time, we were thinking about a fractional ownership product that could bring people into Carlton Landing and allow people to experience the lake in a way that we thought was a superior product. And I will tell you, I own fractional units now. It's still in Carlton Landing. I use fractional units in other places. I spoke with Elite Alliance today. I was on their website last night looking for something that Jen and I could do with the kids in January. And so I still believe that the fractional product, that vehicle, is a superior vacation experience and second home ownership option than anything else that's out there. Okay. I also own timeshare, and I know the difference between timeshares and fractionals, and they are very, very different, and they need to be treated as that and considered as such. But when we first started the master plan for Carlton Landing, we thought it would be fantastic to have a fractional product in Carlton Landing because people could come out 7 weeks a year, and that would be about the right time for how much most people want to come to the lake in our mind, that they could experience 4 seasons. They could have access a bit in the summer, fall, spring, and winter. And it would allow people to come in without having to invest as much. A lot of times the owners in a residence club have the ability to afford a full ownership home. They just can't justify it for the amount of time that they plan to use it. And we thought it'd be a great thing for Carlton Landing. So when we first laid out Water Street, we laid out a plan, and you'll see in everything that we have that's on the legal documents, it says Residence Club, Carlton Landing Residence Club, Phase 1. Because I intended for there to be several phases. Getting some glare here. I'm going to put the blinds in. I intended for there to be several phases that would allow the Residence Club to grow over time and not just be 11 condos, but we have a pro forma that shows the project growing up to over 100 units, 100 different condos that would each be owned by, as many as 7 owners typically. And we thought that this would be a central element in the overall unit mix for Carlton Landing. I would love it if that were the case. As it stands, and this gets into expectations of the developer, we designed the program in 2014 and 15. We worked with the best architects and Glover Smith Bodie and Tracery Interiors, who's out of Rosemary Beach. Glover Smith Bodie is out of Oklahoma City. You might know Mike Hinchy. He's been an owner in Carlton Landing, but he is a principal in that firm. They've worked for Ritz-Carlton. They did the Animal Kingdom Lodge at Disney World. They did the watercolor timeshare program. They're fantastic. I'm working with them now in my personal house. They're really good. We worked with them and we said, hey, let's come up with a world-class product that we could do once, but then we could also replicate it multiple times. The initial phase of development, some of you actually bought into Carlton Landing Residence Club way back when in 2015, when we first started putting things together and we're bringing people into my house and showing images of what it could be. We had our pre-sales requirement done at that time. The oil glut is the time that some of you have chosen to forget, but it was a hard time from 2016, 17. We lost a lot of pre-sales activities, so the contracts fell out because of the oil glut, and we had to restart and come back and reissue the marketing effort and sell those contracts again pre-development. We did that, and we got to a point in 2018 where we were ready to start construction. Since that time, and in that time, I expected that we would sell about 20 fractional contracts per year, and we'd sell out of the overall mix, which is 11 units, 77 owners, that we could sell out of that in 3 to 4 years. Okay. Since that time, we have only sold 21 fractionals. Some have resold. One of the questions is, can I sell, or is there any restrictions to sell? I have no restrictions for anyone to sell. We don't have any restriction. And right now, the remaining units are not fractionalized. They could be. And if anybody would like to buy them or to fractionalize them, I'm happy to talk to them. Okay. But in terms of the expectations, we didn't see the product type be as well received in Oklahoma as I had hoped and expected. I think part of that is that Oklahoma is not a tourism and vacation capital, and part of it is that it's more complex, and I think maybe part of it is that when some people think about a lake retreat, they think about a cabin in the woods or something where you've got your private property around that in a single family detached home. And so those are factors that, or you could just say, Grant, your marketing efforts stunk and your staff didn't do a good job or whatever. And all those come into play. Okay. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying there's a lot of factors. And when something doesn't launch, you ask yourself all those questions like I did. And I think the answer lies somewhere in a combination of all of the above. Okay. So in terms of expectations, we didn't see the growth that we wanted to see in terms of sales. I personally am almost 100% owner of CLRC now. I've bought out other partners in this deal to give them liquidity because they didn't plan to be in it this long. They thought they would be in and out quicker. And so I had to settle with them and work it out with them to try to get them out and make them liquid. By the end of this year, I expect to be 100% owner of CLRC, taking out the last 2 members. And we still own 6 units. Those units, 3 of those are furnished and rented on a short-term rental basis with lake stay. 1 unit is unit 3, which had a leak in the ground floor of the Lakeview unit, and it's being reconstructed right now. And there was some mold and some penetration issues into the floor system. And so we're dealing with that. I think because of where the leak originated, I think that's going to be on me as the unit owner and not on the Residence Club Association. If the leak had come from an exterior wall, it'd be on the Residence Club Association's insurance. But I think it was on an interior demising wall, so it's on the unit owner because it's part of the condo unit, not originating in the envelope of the building. And then the other unit's been long-term owner by Jim Boohacker, and he is planning on building a home and having another location. So that's the 6 units that we own. Everything is for sale. So in terms of expectations, I don't have a rosier picture from my perspective on what we've experienced. We wanted to have this concept launch. It didn't launch. And at some point you just say, okay, is it a beautiful building? Yes. Am I proud of the work that we did in the design and the construction and the furnishing? Absolutely. Um, does it provide a great experience to people who get to experience it? I think the answer is yes. Um, am I pleased with how the project was financially? Not at all. And is there anything I can do about it? Not in this environment. And so what I've chosen to do is just say, hey, I'm a patient owner. If somebody wants to do a deal with us, we'd be happy to do a deal with them. We are not anxious. We do not panic when interest rates go up 400 basis points and our carry costs go through the roof. That's just part of it. And we're going to be in the season. I expect that we'll be in the season for another 2 years at least. And it could be several years longer. Okay. So that's where I'm starting from. I want you guys to understand my position. I will get to all the questions and we're going to go through it. I know that a lot of expectations on your end have not been met. Okay. And so um, we're in a situation where you have two parties who are in this thing together. Expectations have not been met from either side. Um, that's unfortunate because we'd all like to get into something. I know when you bought into Carlton Landing and you bought into the Residence Club, you had high expectations. And I'm sure there's some of you that are, thrilled with the experience that you're having and thankful for the chance to be in Carlton Landing at the price basis that you are. But the reality is that the rest of the project overall has not taken off. So I think when we talk about expectations, what I want to point to is, what's the information that's driving the expectations? Um, as it relates to the owner's expectations in the Residence Club, the thing that I'll go back to and is going to be the governing documents. And so I'll be referencing the declaration of the Residence Club Condo Association. Um, and it's the Residence Club unit ownership. And then it's also the bylaws of the condo association and going back to that. And that's the playbook that we operate by. Um, I will say where there is a dollar sign attached to that, I am 100% uh, intentional and committed to doing exactly what it says. There are some things in that I have, and like the calling of the annual meeting is one that I will say, hey, we dropped the ball on that. We should have done that. We did not do that. Okay. And so I will own that and say that's something that we need to submit ourselves to and say, look, we need to abide by every letter of the declaration and the bylaws. Um, I don't know of any place where we've done anything inappropriate as it relates to anything with a dollar sign attached to it. And we'll be happy to go through that and lay it out for you. When there is a lack of information, um, people can make whatever assumptions they wish. And I understand that. And so there's a lot of misinformation that is floated around. There's a lot of accusations that have been made. I don't I'm happy to answer any question. I'm not willing on a Friday afternoon in front of everybody to get into a back and forth based on an accusation. So if there is an accusation that you wish, put it in the form of a question. I'll answer it. We can discuss it for a bit. And then what we'll do is we'll take that and say, let's have an additional conversation that would be private. And I'm happy to do that. Let's see what else. I think one other thing that I'd say that just needs to be said, the management of, I think we did a very good job in design and construction of the Residence Club. I think that management of the Residence Club since it's been opened has been subpar, and I admit that. And so, and before Stephen and Lindsay resign on me, I want them to know that is not directed at Stephen and Lindsay. I'm going back from the beginning and just saying with the turnover that we've had in staff and from the lack of accountability and from other things, the management just overall has been subpar. I think Stephen and Lindsay have been the best staff moves that we've had in Carlton Landing um, in a number of years. And I'm really thankful for their efforts. And I'm thankful for the folks that were here prior for the times that they did things right. But I will just tell you, I've had a lot of frustration and disappointment over the last several years in kind of the revolving door of people that have been involved with management and operations. That's been a hard position to fill, and it's been uh, frustrating on your end. I understand that, and it's been frustrating on my end. So I want to say we're not starting this conversation off by me saying, hey, I don't know what you're upset about. Everything's been perfect, because I know it hasn't. Okay. Before I get into reading the questions and going question by question, is there any feedback, conversation, anything that you guys would like to say for the good of the order before we get into some of the questions? I'm happy to hear anything. I would ask that it be constructive. That's uh, that's my request. Anything? All right.
Grant,
Okay.
Grant, I'll
Yeah.
start. I mean, this is
Yeah,
Bruce
Bruce.
Grant,
Hey, Bruce.
and we're actually up in Unit 9 right now. Just checked in. So to be constructive, and I will be constructive, you hit it on the head when you talked about this being a model that many of us are attracted to. I've been to the watercolor unit. I know that it can work, and I think you do have something here that will work. You have an exciting. It's fascinating to Kathy and I when we come down here to see what's going on at Carlton Landing, and that's the beauty of coming down here 5-6 weeks a year or whenever we get down here, is to just to see what all you've accomplished down here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable. But that being said, we had just got here and I had looked around to see what's going on. And that being said, you apologize for the lack of communication, and that's been a frustration of mine and probably everybody else on here. But what are you going to do about that going forward? I want to hear the answer to that. You can apologize for it, but we need to know what you're going to do to make it better. And Lindsay's going to try, I'm sure. But that's the first question I have is, apologies are one thing, but how are you going to improve it?
Okay. That's good. No, I appreciate that, Bruce. Thanks. We'll put together. I'll tell you, with every question, the only way that this thing works, when I say this thing works, the only way that my questions are effective and conclusive is if I give you something and then I'm held accountable to it and hold our staff accountable to it, and we execute. So when I give you a response, it needs to be clear, defined. It needs to have a quantitative side to it, and it needs to have a deadline and a date to it. I think what I can commit to in terms of communication, all communication with owners should go to Lindsay. It's her job to be the owner relations rep. If Lindsay has an answer for it and she knows it's the right answer, she should respond with something that she knows is the right answer. And she'll know it's the right answer because it's been put in writing to her, either in something that's in the governing documents or in something that we've created as a formal policy. I don't expect for employees to put something into writing if they've only heard it verbally. I want them to hear it from me and for me to respond with clarity. So first, we need to be responsive with facts when you go to Lindsay with information. If Lindsay doesn't know the answer for that, she needs to connect with me, and I will point to the place in the governing documents where it is. And she can also go to Stephen Coville, but Stephen's been here for about a year, and a lot of these governing documents with the Residents Club were done years before he arrived. But she needs to get the answers and get the facts, and we need to be responsive in a timely manner. I'd say if there's a question and if she doesn't have an answer for it, we need to give her a response within 3 days. Okay. In terms of like outgoing proactive communication, Bruce, I think I would ask what's reasonable. Would a quarterly update be appropriate. I think that's one thing, is outbound communication, you know, on a quarterly basis, just saying, here's what's happening. And we talk about anything that's affecting the residence club property in terms of any kind of changes in policies, any changes in unit ownership, or in communication that the homeowners are wishing to share with other owners. So I think that that could be something that we could commit to, is that there would be a quarterly email communication. Instead of me taking notes on this stuff, Lindsay, since you're recording it, I'm going to have you play this back afterwards, and then we'll make a list and turn it into an action item. The other thing that we will do is that I'll commit to is give notice of the annual meeting and hold the meetings in accordance with the bylaws. Okay, this right now is a Q&A session. This is not the annual meeting. So this is a Q&A session. When we do have the annual meeting, I think it'll be in this format because so many owners are in distant lands and unable to be in Carlton Landing at the same time because of the fractional ownership structure. So I think Zoom's a great way to do that. Okay. Bruce, if we did that for you, is that adequate, or do you want something different?
Well, I think that's a strong start. Obviously, is something like that. But you know, we're all waiting to hear. I mean, an example of, it's one of your questions, but the example of lack of communication is the pool, and you know that's what we want to hear about. And that's a perfect example of it. We find out about that through word of mouth. And,
yeah. Let me dive in then to the questions. But Lindsay, at the end of this, I want you to rewatch this and take notes, and then anything that I've committed to. And right now it's that you'd give factual information. I'd get back to you within 3 days. We do quarterly communication. We operate according to annual meeting procedures and the bylaws. I can commit to that. Let's go through the questions. And what I'm going to do is I've got 25 questions here. Lindsay, there was a question from Janet Kopke about if her questions and concerns were reflected in these. Are those included? Okay. Nodding of the head says yes. Okay. So what I want to do is read through all the questions first, and then I'll just go point by point and we'll just start working through them. Some of these I know off the top of my head. Some of these I'll need a reference. I've pulled up several references and I can point to certain, you know, chapter and verse on some of these. Others, I'll need to look it up, and if I can find it while we're on the deal and I'm not wasting your time, then I will do so. If it's going to take longer, then I'll get back to you and we'll put a pin in it and just say it's not a closed issue. Suzanne, are we able to have new application that we can see calendar for open weeks? There are many ways to create a community using an application that might promote better communication. So you're talking about an app and you can see the calendar. That's a good question. Let me read all these questions and then we'll hit that and we'll come back to the others. Another question is, our first concern is, of course, the loss of our pool. I'm just reading these verbatim as they were presented to Lindsay. And I'm assuming, Lindsay, that you just copied and pasted everything into this to me.
Yes, some of them, some questions I did not include because it was more personal information.
About me or you or them or?
No, about other fractional owners and how much they pay and all that stuff. So, but a majority of the questions that are on that list are what was
just copy and paste from the owners to me. Okay. So here's the deal. If there's any question that was not included on this list, please contact Lindsay, and I'm going to respond to everything that's been provided to me. Okay. Says our first concern is, of course, over the loss of our pool, which was a promised amenity from our initial earnest money meeting in November of 2014. Second question. So with that amenity lost, will our dues be reduced? Third question. We're deeply concerned of the overall status of the residence club from the point of so many units being private ownership now. Fourth question. We also have concerns and would like to know how the dues for the private owners of residence club units compare with what we pay. Question 5. The boat club is the only true amenity we have left, and the ability to use it with the way the planned stay scheduled is handled limits us to at the most 3 times a season. Question 6. I'd also like to express concern of who decides what items are added to the residence club unit. We noticed new soap dishes in the bathroom, but I would greatly appreciate fully stocked glassware, flatware, dishes, cooking utensils, and possibly upgraded cookware. I lug my own skillets and knives, etc. when we come. It shouldn't be the case, but we'll get back to that. Number 7. In the past, we had to pay for damage to furniture after allowing guests to stay. We noticed much damage that has not been addressed. Question 8. With the selling of the new pool, how will this financially benefit residence club owners? Question 9. When will current Lakeview owners be able to sell their interests? Number 10. And I answered that earlier. Anyone that's an owner in the residence club, whether it's a Lakeview unit, a Park Street unit, or a Veranda unit, has the right and freedom to market and sell your unit without restriction. Okay. So I'm just going to answer that right off the bat. You can do that. I know Katie Chapman and you can do that with any realtor that you wish. We don't restrict that. Since, I'm just going to put a line through that. Since we sold the last fractional unit, which was a little bit over a year ago, I stopped the fractional marketing program. We limited it to the 3 condos that have been fractionally sold. I own the other 6. And then there are 2 that are owned by full ownership units. So there's a total of 11 condos. And you fractional owners in the residence club have the right to sell your fractional share as a deeded interest. And you can do for sale by owner, or you can work with any realtor that you choose. Okay. So I'll take question 9 off the list. The promised resident, number 10, the promised residence club solely for the use of residents and boat club members is now open to everyone. I think we're talking about, I'm not sure what okay. Does violate any covenants, promises, or contracts or other laws or agreements. I'll come back to that, but I think it's talking about the pool across the street. Will the Lakeview units ever receive comparable balcony furniture or at least an upgrade to what's there now? How are decisions made? Is there a board? If so, who's on it? We would like to see an HOA formed where homeowners have some say in decision making and also are informed. Number 13, garbage dumpsters. Can there be 2? It's overflowing on the weekends. Number 14, is there a pet policy? Number 15, what is the selection process for next year's assigning weeks for a specific number, specific unit number? Number 16, can we have bigger locker for the clubs to store more things out of the residence? Number 17, we need to know the best, most consistent, always available contact for emergencies and urgencies. This includes during regular hours when it's hard to find someone, and then of course after hours. Number 18, we commonly feel like we're in the dark or the last to know about decisions and events, etc. It would be nice to have regular communication regarding what's going on in the residence club and in Carlton Landing. We're not officially in the community HOA, and we don't have access to those meetings or the meeting minutes. Number 19, can we have information regarding updates, painting, deep cleaning, repairs, replacing furniture and rugs, etc. Number 20, what are your plans for the residence club? General statement. Well, I'm gonna say that is going to be covered through the other questions that we're going to ask. So I'm going to cross off number 20 there. Number 21, speaking of a fitness center, sales literature mentions a fitness club amenity in the future. Are there any plans for that? Literature also indicates a concierge service will be available as well as a bellman. Not crucial to us personally, but what is the future vision? Number 22, literature indicates that the club association is governed by a board of directors comprised of owners of the residences, and the contract indicates that we are obligated to become a member of the association, which I support. But is there such a governing group? It indicates that the board will determine the annual budget and fees related to club operations. Can we see the Residence Club financials? Can we get a list and contact information of our fellow unit owners? Number 23, while it's been recently communicated to me personally that there is no tornado shelter mentioned in the official documents or in the future plans. I think the question there is, is there a tornado shelter that's in the documents or planned for in the future? Number 24, since our pool is part of town use, how does that affect our maintenance fees? Number 25, where are we currently with the Residence Club model? Okay. I'm going to say 25 is going to be answered in the course of providing answers to the rest of the questions. Okay. Some of the big points that I think will knock out a few of these things. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions that have popped up. And then Suzanne's question about application for calendar of open weeks. I think it would be good. Suzanne, let me just answer that question quick. Right now, I think the easiest way to do this is to have access to a shared calendar, like a Google Calendar that everybody could see. And it's not too technically complicated, but it is something where if you have access to this calendar, you can look. I also have an ownership in a vacation home in Colorado, and we use an app it's a website, but it also has an app called Cozy, C-O-Z-I. And that I think is probably the best way to go about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with Lindsay and we'll figure out which one's best, whether it's the Cozy app where you have your own login and then you have access and everybody could have their own individual login and then have access to look at a shared calendar. Lindsay would maintain that calendar and Lindsay would be the only one that could add weeks, because once it's on the calendar, that's your confirmation that it's accepted and it's available, and the management knows that you're reserving that time. But you could see what's available and then you could communicate with Lindsay for the reservation process. We've looked at other things, other types of websites and platforms that are more complicated and more expensive than it makes sense. I think Cozy would be the best way to address that concern and let you see it without having to call or email Lindsay to check dates. You could look and you could see what's available, and you could look at the reservation policies within the Residence Club documents. And two things I want to do. Lindsay, let's commit to resend everyone the reservation policies. And also we'll send the reservation policies along with your vacation request letter for 2024. And Lindsay, I want to work with you before you send that out. What we'll do is we'll also get onto the Cozy app that allows you to have your login and see information specific about each unit, about availability. And then you can create your Cozy login. You can have information to have that as line of sight, see what's available and when. Okay.
Yeah, I've used that before, Grant, so that would actually work great. Like, I'm not asking you to put like stuff on the calendar, just sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to figure out where we're going for a family.
I know.
Lindsay doesn't want to answer at that hour.
I'm with you. Well, the Cozy is, I mean, that's what we use for our personal. My parents have a home in Colorado and it works great. We use that for our family. Cool. Okay, so Suzanne, your question's off. If anyone did not hear me read the question that you want to answer, just put it into the chat and we'll try to plow through this as quick as we can. I want to start with the pool because the pool is the one that I think has had probably the most discussion and unfortunately a lot of misinformation. And so let me just go to the pool, and probably the pool is the one that if people are frustrated, they are probably frustrated about this more than anything. Okay. Can I get by a show of hands? Are you guys agreeing with me? Okay. Let me tell you about first of all, when we started the Residence Club, we said what we need to do is we need to have unit ownership in the condo. So when you buy a condo, you are purchasing unit ownership in that condominium under the residence club regime that's defined in the declaration and supported by the governing documents. Okay. Under the declaration, one of the things that we get into is the creation of a homeowners association. Okay, so we do have a residence club homeowners association. It does exist. It existed before anybody purchased a unit in the residence club. And in the declaration, it provides for, the creation of this homeowners association. The homeowners association has bylaws. And Lindsay, I'd like for you to, in Appfolio, I'd like for you to put into the library of Appfolio. Hey, Lindsay, let me ask you. And Lindsay, just stay on. You need to be there. Quit disappearing on me. Do we have the declaration in Appfolio already for
No,
the Residence Club Association?
not that I know of.
Okay. I want you to upload that into the library in Appfolio. That's what it's there for, is to share governing documents. What we need to include in that are the plans and specs for the Residence Club, the declaration for the Residence Club unit ownership, the declaration for Carlton Landing, the bylaws for the Residence Club Condo Association, and the bylaws for the Town Center Association. And if I can think of any other information that anybody if it's an official governing document and you think I've left it out, I'd also include the past marketing materials and the owner information booklet, the OIB.
Mhm.
That's a critical piece of information because it provides the reservation policies that all owners need to have. So all of that information should be put onto the library in Appfolio, and that's the way that we'll post the information. If you'd like to get additional information from Lindsay, you can request it. She's welcomed and empowered to give out any official information on the Residence Club to you guys. Additionally, while we're hanging out with the Appfolio library, Drury Roberts is the guy that keeps our financials for the Residence Club Homeowners Association. I'll ask him to prepare, and I've got a financial report on the Residence Club for this year since we shifted over to Appfolio. In years past, it was in QuickBooks, and I'll provide a historical financial summary of balance sheet and income statement for the Residence Club Association from its inception up until now on an annual basis. And then in Appfolio, Drury can provide that. He provides that to us on a monthly basis. But moving forward, we'll provide quarterly financial updates into the library in Appfolio so that you can see the financial reports. That was one of the questions that we had. Okay. So, and I'm on the Residence Club Association. I will just tell you, this is a smaller back burner entity. Just being honest with you guys. When you look at Carlton Landing, we're talking about 21 condominiums, of which 3 that have been sold, and we have 325 homes. So the ownership in the Residence Club, and hear me when I say this, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you guys bought into the vision of the Residence Club and the vision of Carlton Landing. I'm so thankful for that. Logistically, in terms of management attention, it's been a side burner because it represents 1% of the ownership in Carlton Landing. We got 3 condos, you got 325 homes. And so it has not received the attention that I think it should. And I'm just being honest with you about why the Residence Club Association has been kind of a minor character in the story of Carlton Landing. It's because you've got 3 condos units that are related to that versus the homeowners association that has a lot more financial and relational gravity. Okay, if I could put it that way. But what we can do is anything that is related to ownership can go into the library. And if you have additional questions for Lindsay or for me through Lindsay, you can let her know of that and she can post that into Appfolio. Okay. Coming back to the pool. In the bylaws of the association, there's a thing called amenity agreements. It's in section 1.3 of the bylaws. And it says amenity agreements shall mean agreements with third parties for the benefit of fractional interest members, which may obligate fractional interest members to pay more in assessments or dues. Okay. The boat club is an amenity agreement. So the boat club exists. It's open to anybody, whether you're an owner in the residence club or an owner in Carlton Landing or anybody else. We have people from outside of Carlton Landing that are members of the boat club. The Residence Club Association has 3 admiral memberships in the boat club. That's a totally separate entity. And the Residence Club Association pays for those admiral level memberships and then makes that available to its members under this amenity agreement clause. The pool club was intended to be the same kind of thing, an amenity agreement. This is something I want to be very, very clear on. The Residence Club, its members, and the Residence Club Association and CLRC, who is the developer of the Residence Club, has never owned the resort pool that's across the street from you guys. Additionally, CLRC and the Residence Club Association, and therefore the members who are in the Residence Club, have never paid a dime for the pool that's across the street from you guys. That pool was not paid for initially because we saw the slow sales in the Residence Club. We put it on hold. I think it was about 2019 or 20. I said, look, we're just not seeing it happen yet. We're going to push it for a bit. And then we got to a point where I said, you know what? We talked about having that pool as an amenity. We showed the pool as an amenity. You could say the word promise was received. I can tell you in an affidavit, I never said, I promise there will be a pool there. But at any rate, we got to the point where I said, we need to have a pool there. And we'd like to have not only a pool, but a pool club. I started down the road of saying, how can we have a pool club when we only have 3 Residence Club units that are sold? And we're not sure if we're going to do phase 2. We spent some time talking to different club operators. And I went down the road with people that could provide a club. We couldn't work that out. And at the same time, if you'll think back a few years, we're having some real challenges operationally. Okay. This is 2019, 20. I was no longer in Carlton Landing. Our management in Carlton Landing was really struggling. And it was just a hard time for Carlton Landing in a lot of ways. This is before COVID, before the COVID boom, right? We said, hey, let's go ahead and build the pool. We put the pool in. I think the pool was completed about 2018 or 19 or something like that. We were trying to get a club to come in and offer drinks and food service and waiter service. I didn't see that we had the bandwidth within our operational staff to add that on top of other things that they were already committed to. So we said, let's run the pool. And just Grant personally, I owned it. I paid for 100% of it. And I paid for all the operating cost on it. And it would cost me I think it was about $70,000 a year to operate that pool. We didn't charge the Residence Club Association anything for it. We let you guys use it exclusively because I was trying to hold it away from the rest of Carlton Landing owners because they hadn't paid for it. You all were allowed to use it, but we did not have a pool club. There was no pool club. There was no amenity charge. No one ever had to pay for anything. When the negotiations with a club operator fell through, I got to the point that, and last year in 2022, if you'll remember, we had 2 pools that were owned by the Homeowners Association, and they were over capacity. And we had this nice resort pool down by the lake. and it was hardly being used because it was limited to just the, the residence club owners that were present at the time, and a few of the folks that were willing to jump the fence or, pirate their way into the pool. In the fall, I said, I don't want to see that again, where the boardwalk pool and the tower court pool are over capacity and the resort club pool is there not being used as much. And so I went to the homeowners association. I said, let's put this before the board. The homeowners association decided to buy it at cost. The board voted for it. We sold it to them at cost, not including the operational losses that I incurred the previous 2 or 3 years. It was challenged because it violated a percentage of annual operating expenses that would be more than 6% of the annual budget. And so we had to take it to a vote of all the members, and Lindsay earned a Medal of Honor as she worked through the process of that voting to get the homeowners association members to approve the purchase of the pool and the purchase of pool equipment for all 3 community pools. We got that done in June or July of this year, and took a sigh of relief that it was done. Now, the communication that I just had with you, I should have given you that communication 4 years ago. And I should have probably given you that communication on an annual basis each year, so you understood what the deal was as it related to the pool. I think that deals with, and so that's my response. Happy to open it up to any questions, and we'll have some discussion on this, but I'd like to keep moving through questions. I just know that this is one that we wanted to start with. Any comments? If you're muted, got to unmute yourself. I know that description of how I just described that is different than what's been communicated to you. Okay. I'd say the pool is now, it's not, I'm kind of a stickler on some of these terms. One of the questions in 24, it says, since our pool is part of town use, how does that affect our maintenance fees? Well, it's not, the town is a municipality. What it is now, the pool is owned by the Homeowners Association of Carlton Landing, which up until now, the Residence Club has not had to pay anything into the Homeowners Association of Carlton Landing. So in the last year or two, I think we provided a usage rights to other community pools. And we did that at no cost. And it went on for a while. And then some of the homeowners members said, hey, since they're not paying dues, should we come up with a fair way to be compensated, since they're using the pools that all the other members have had to pay for, or that the association has paid for? We thought that was fair. Stephen Coville came to me with a recommendation that Residence Club Association would have right to the community pools, and it would be at a cost of $400 per month. So it's $4,800 per year. Stephen, I'm going to invite you onto this. I know you're here, but if you could just, and I said, I think that sounds fair, but let me let Stephen tell you how he came to that number.
Yeah, basically, okay. Basically, I just looked at the cost for maintaining all the pools, and looked at how many homes we had currently, and kind of came up with a per home price that was being paid to cover maintenance and cleaning of the pools, and applied that to the fractional ownership of the resort club members. And it came up to $35 to $40 a month per unit. So about $5, $6, $7 per person per month.
Okay. So with that, the Residence Club Association will have a legal right to use all 3
Brand,
pools.
I think you're muted.
Shouldn't be. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Why are we getting so much?
So Stephen, mute yourself, please. Thanks. So with that, everyone who's a member of a fractional owner in the Residence Club Association will have a legal right to use the pools with the same rights as an owner in Carlton Landing. And the Residence Club Association will pay for that, $4,800. And I will work it into our annual budget, and it will not change your dues. Okay. Seeing if there's any others on the pool. Any other questions?
Well, Grant, I hate to be the only one that's speaking up, but I
Yeah.
do think Bruce Graham again. I do think the fact that this has been going on for several years, and some of us bought during that time, and this discussion was obviously going on in your head. That it would have been good for us to know that there wasn't going to be exclusive. I mean, when you walk down there, the sign on the walkway down there said, it's for Residence Club only or club members. And the literature not the contract, I recognize the contract, but the literature infers that there's going to be our access to it. And, that clearly has changed. If this has been going on, that goes back to the communication thing. And it also goes back to the financials. I think it's probably surprised everybody on this call that we weren't paying for that pool. And if that's the case, then the financials would validate that. And I think that's good that you're going to post that so we can kind of get an idea of that. If we would have known that all along, we wouldn't be asking questions about what are you going to do to compensate us for lack of the pool. So
Yeah. Well, and that's why, Bruce, on this, the way that I would receive communication, sometimes I'd get an email directly from somebody, and I appreciate that. Sometimes I would be responsive to that, and for when I was not responsive to that, I apologize for that. Most of the time, the communication I'd have would be secondhand through Stephen or Lindsay or what somebody read on social media, or on the sidewalk, just a comment, but I knew there was more to it than that. And so this meeting that we're having right now is something that about 2 or 3 months ago, Stephen said, hey, there's quite a bit of chatter and I think some confusion about these things. And I said, let's have a meeting where it's recorded and where I can state it clearly, because I think email is a horrible way to communicate when there's emotion involved. And I want people to understand my tone and see where we're coming from. And then it's all recorded and it's clear and we're all in one conversation and there's one statement. So it's not this playing telephone tag between 21 different owners. So I received that, Bruce. Like I say, I on the lack of communication from my side, I received that 100%. So let me keep, yes.
Grant, Gil, and Rhonda here.
Hey, Gil.
Just wanted to say on that pool issue and the background and that sort of thing, I'd come to you about that issue of the pool and everything, and just met with you briefly after church one day. I thought that's a good place to talk, because in church, because we could both be civil. And I appreciated so much you just taking the time right then and going through a lot of that background with me and explaining that. It really helped for us to be able to understand the background. And I just wanted to say I appreciate your integrity for following through and footing the bill for the pool, making sure that the pool was built and put there. We discussed at church that day that maybe you needed to do some type of a follow-up, maybe make a video explaining the background. And this is exactly what you've done. Followed through with that. I just really appreciate your follow through.
Thanks, Gil. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to come to blows in church. That would be unfortunate.
Yeah, that was a good place to have a short meeting.
No, I appreciate that. And what stinks, and this is just on me for doing for not communicating clearly or allowing assumptions and what's the word I'm looking for? It's appearances to turn into fact. Is that I'm coming at it now in our communications, hoping to work back to restore something that's been broken. You know, a void or a fracture that's happened in relationships. And that's really unfortunate because I wish that the communication was there from the beginning, and then we wouldn't be in a deficit. We'd be in a great place that didn't have to deal with frustration. So, but I appreciate that. Let me just go through these questions real quick. Concerned over overall status and the point of so many units being owned under private ownership now. Now, here's an important thing to note. I have sold 2 units to outside owners, and we have sold 3 units to fractional owners. So there are 5 units that are sold. There was a time where Ryan Llewellyn, who is a close friend and business partner and in other ways with me, owned a unit for a time, but it was not ever fully transferred. It was something where I sold it to him. There was a title movement, and I had an obligation to buy it back from him in a certain time when his home construction was complete. And I performed on that. He performed, he provided funding. It was not the full amount of the value of the unit, but it was a strong down payment. You could call it a short-term ownership structure that was never fully, I didn't consider it gone, and I bought it back from him. So now what we're talking about today is there's 5 units that have been conveyed. There's 6 units that are still owned by CLRC, Carlton Landing Residence Club is what that stands for. That is where we stand. That's an important thing because in the bylaws, when we talk about board governance and board control, which I'll get to in a second, when the next unit sells, if somebody wants to see me have to hand over control of the homeowners association, just buy a condo and you'll trigger that because you get past 50%. And once there's 50% and I own less than 50%, then it starts a clock of transferring control to the owners and what is called the right of control in the declaration. So it starts that clock, and I'd be happy to do that. Any concern or any questions about the number of units that are privately owned? Okay, I'm going to give everyone like 6 seconds on these things. We're going to keep it moving. Otherwise, we'll be
Grant,
here
is
all
there
night.
a list of which units are sold or which units are owned that we can put out?
Yeah, so
Just if you can just write it in the document, we don't have to do it now.
I'll just tell you real quick. Units 9, 10, and 11 are fractionally owned. 9 is a Park Street, 10 is a Veranda, 11 is a Lakeview. Those are fractionally owned on the 3rd floor. Units 1 and 2 are privately owned. That's the 2 ground floor Park Street units. Units 3 through 8 are owned by CLRC, and units 6, 7, and 8, which is Veranda, Lakeview, and Park Street on the 3rd floor, are part of the Lake Stay rental program. Units 3, 4, and 5 are going to go into short-term rentals, or I'm happy to sell them. Happy to sell anything. So, okay. We also have concerns. We'd like to know how are dues for the private owners of Residence Club, how do they compare with fractional? And so I think the distinction here is saying there is a fractional ownership regime and there's a whole ownership regime. That's tied out and described in the declaration. I'm going to share with you, if Lindsay will allow me. Lindsay, make it where multiple people can share. Maybe I'll share it with you. Oh, she's feeling pressure right now. Everyone stare at Lindsay while she's trying to figure this out. At the bottom under share screen, it should say a little up arrow. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so here is the 2022 and 2023 maintenance dues. And so on every unit, and you've got Park Street, and this, Lindsay, please provide this as well into the library. But you have Park Street, Lakeview units, and Veranda units, okay? You can see your dues here. The fractional ownership are at and I'm hoping this is the right one. I pulled this up. Stephen, can you confirm that this is still correct? 2975. What's
That
that?
looks right to me.
Okay. So our dues are 5,100 per year for fractional owner, 60 for a Park Street unit, 6,300 per year for a Lakeview unit, and 7,500 per year for a veranda owner. Okay. What you see is on a given unit, your total annual dues that are provided are broken down where when they are using the service, they pay the same. So insurance, they pay the same amount. And this is on a fractional ownership. We get to the bottom, and for a whole ownership unit, it's $1,800 or $18,000 a year for the veranda. For fractional, it's 52.5, and then it's then divided by 12, and it's also divided by a 1/7 ownership. Okay. We'll provide this here. The big deal that makes a difference is boat club. Pool club, this $500 is what was going. Just 1 second here. The $500 that's shown here for pool club is for access to the pool while I owned it. Since it's transferred to the homeowners association, that would go to the amount, and this is what we're going to work into the annual schedule. So this was from 2022. Okay. Utilities are a little bit different because on water and fiber, because of the amount of use. Or electric and fiber. I'd say I'll put this out there, and if anyone has questions about this, the big deal is the administration, the concierge, the boat club. Those are the big ticket items. And there's a reserve for replacements that goes into the furniture for the residence club, and the owners don't have furnishings. Okay. Happy to entertain questions or comments about this. What I think would be helpful is if we provide this to you, we put it up into AppFolio, and if you have specific questions about it, happy to receive that. Okay. So it's just a math deal. We divide by, we try to say, okay, for any given line item, what's the appropriate amount? I will say I want to look back, Stephen, and find out why there's even a difference in utilities and fiber for electric and fiber, because those amounts theoretically I think should be the same. So we need to see why they would be different. I'm not sure why. I don't have a good answer for that, but as I was reading that kind of caught me off guard. So I'll just put that out there. It's not a material impact to the total number, and these numbers, I don't think that we've changed your dues for the residence club for some time. Okay. If there's questions about that, we'll put that into AppFolio, and if you have questions about it. In terms of the boat club being the amenity and the ability to use the boat club with the way that planned stays are scheduled, it limits you to 3 times per season. I'd say we made the language read that fractional owners have the ability to use the boat club when they are in residence. The day they arrive does not count, but the day you wake up in Carlton Landing in a bed in Carlton Landing in the residence club is the day that you're in residence. I think that's correct. Is that the way that it's being practiced right now? Or is it the day you arrive, you can use it, but you can't use it the last day? Does anyone? In the absence of another voice, my understanding is that being in residence means you wake up in Carlton Landing that day. Okay. That means that you can get as many summer weeks as you have the ability to according to the reservation policies. And you're right, just because of the math, the boating season starts, Stephen, what's your first date? April 1st?
This year, I believe was March 31st.
Okay. So it starts beginning of April and it runs weekends until you get to like May 15th. And then it runs every day from May 15th till September 15th. And then it's weekends again until Halloween. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if you are in residence on any day that the boat club is operational, and when I say weekends, it is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. And as an Admiral member, that's the highest level of membership that you have in the boat club. You have a right to a boat every single day. Every owner in the residence club on the days that they are in residence has a right to a boat on the day that they're in residence. What you don't have the directive right to, but you have the option and trying to make it work is what boat hour, what reservation period you're going to have and what type of boat you'll have, whether it's a pontoon boat or a ski boat. So you might want the ski boat in the afternoon and what's available is the pontoon boat in the morning. That's the Admiral level membership being fulfilled. You have a guaranteed right to a boat every day that you're in residence. What it comes down to is not you competing with every other boat club member for the boat club fleet, but you competing only with the other Admiral members. And we have a very limited number of Admiral members. So if you want to have your option of the ski boat in the afternoon and not the pontoon boat in the morning, it comes down to how early you make that reservation. So if you book your week and you know you're going to be there on a given day, the next thing I would do is say, what boats are available on this day, this day, this day, this day, and let's get that lined out. Get that choice in early because you know that you're going to be in a boat. You're not sure which boat, you're not sure what time. But if you want to get the best boat at the best time as you determine, then use your ability to the Admiral membership. And I think it's a 6-month lead time on Admiral reservations. Lindsay, does that sound right? Okay. I believe it is. Lindsay, I'm going to continue to hit you with questions like this. So be on your toes. Okay. Any questions or comments about boat club access? Going once, going twice, and 3 times. Okay. Who decides what additional items get added to the residence club soap dishes in the bathroom? Let me tell you our approach. And I talked to Stephen about this today or yesterday. And but I'll say this, we need to set up a process for taking inventory and dealing with this immediately upon checkout. Every residence club unit has a list of so many forks, so many knives, a coffee maker, so many cups, so many dishes, so many XYZ. I think it's 2 pods for dishwasher. I think it's, 1 scrub brush. And so we've got this list that needs to be provided that when you show up, you open up the closet and there is a vacuum cleaner and there's a broom and a dustpan. I think that's in there, but we've got the whole thing. And the list is the same list that is provided when I ran the home rental program. We would say this is the minimum requirements of what a home should have. And it comes down to the number of towels and the number of bed sheets and pillowcases for the sleeping capacity of the home. And the sleeping capacity of the home, including your sleeper sofa, drives the number of dishes that are in the counter. So if you have 10 people staying there because you're in a 4-bedroom home with the sleeper sofa and you open up the cabinet and you only have 6 dishes, that doesn't work. Okay. I want to confirm, and I'm going to put this to Stephen and Lindsay. I want Stephen to confirm that all of the residence club fractionalized units have 100% of the inventory items that are required as the minimum requirement. And Stephen, if you have any question about what's included on that, just get with me and I'll show you the old rental management agreement that we used to have when we were in the program. I want to also do that, Stephen, for the other homes that are in the Lake Stay program, that we confirm this is what's included. In terms of, and then to report that to Lindsay, and Lindsay, you report it to everybody. You can do it by email, or you can put a report into the library in AppFolio. Secondly, when someone leaves and checks out, I want part of the turn process from one person to the other. And this is conducted by the housekeeping staff that I think is directed under Lake Stay. Is that correct, Lindsay? Or is this under your direction, Stephen? Okay. You got to be quicker on the answer. So I think someone who directs housekeeping staff on the turns?
I do.
Okay, awesome. So add to their checklist that they have to take inventory, and if something's missing, they have to note it and it's replaced immediately. And I'd say that you keep inventory so that you have enough back supply that you can put that in immediately, and we're not waiting a week or two to receive XYZ.
Sounds good.
Sea and Ski is a Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just, while you were on the housekeeping staff, we just checked in, and I think Terry does a phenomenal job of keeping this place clean. It was fresh. It was nice. There's things that, in maintenance that, like the area rug here at some point needs to be, but that's something we can communicate with Lindsay. But I think Terry's doing a good job, at least certainly with our units.
No, Terry's great. Terry's great. And I think one thing that we could do is twice a year, and I do it in spring and the fall, is do a hard look. And we might need to do it in the middle of the summer as well, because that's when things are really getting used. Do a hard look at each unit with an objective lens, fresh set of eyes to look at it and say, where are we seeing wear and tear? We should be setting aside a portion of this money from, our budget for reserve for replacement, so the association can come in and replace furniture. And if you have carpet stains, other things that are going on, and furniture that's need to be replaced, I want to stay ahead of that. And I know what Stephen's going to say is, hey, Grant, there's not money for it. I know that the Residents Club Association is not a financial model that is just knocking the ball out of the park. Part of that, and we'll get to this in a second, is there's a lot of folks that are not paying dues. Okay. I'm not talking about cash. I'm talking about income statement. We should have this money budgeted and set aside for that, so that we can be proactive about that. So at least 2, if not 3 times a year, I want to do a hard look at each unit and at all the furniture. We're going to do an inventory check for the items each turn, so between every weekly vacation, so that when you come in, it should be there. Someone mentioned here the soap dishes. I'd like to see Lindsay talk to me about what we used to call, I think we called them collateral, but for a while it was, and this was actually a fun time in the process where we brought in different types of shampoo and soap, and we're smelling them and seeing how they worked. If that's changed, I've never heard about it. So I want to talk about that, because that's an important thing, that we hold a standard up and we don't. I forget the name. What's the name of the shampoo that we use? Monette and Grown or something like that?
I think it is.
Okay.
Which we can't, I haven't been able to find it.
Okay. So
but
have a
Emily has shared that
have a conversation with me about it, because that's the first I'd heard of that they changed the soap and shampoos, and that's part of the branding. So we don't want to change that. Okay.
Hey, Grant, the other thing I would like to say is that we've got to staff the kitchen with like proper stuff. Like, there's no restaurants up there. So part of the adhere of going to a condo is to have family over and to cook and do all that kind of stuff. I know not everybody is a cook, but you got Teflon pans and metal utensils. Like, let's just be honest, like there's a lot of things in the kitchens that just don't work. Right. And then they don't work together. Like, there's no crock pot. I mean, like, again, some of the heavy utensil things that we're trying to bring up that were in the unit, I don't even mind. Like, we had asked earlier if we could donate stuff that could stay in the unit, as long as everybody could use it. I'm fine with that too, but we've got to come to some agreement, because it's just woefully underdone.
Okay. I hear that. And so I'd say, Suzanne, any like specific request of what we can do to do it better, please give that to Lindsay. We work with a group called Sea and Ski that's in the resort management business, and they provide things that I think are of target quality. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's kind of mid-range. I think that we need to do a good job and make sure that everything's there. But if you're telling me, hey, this doesn't work with that, and we need to have this, just let Lindsay know that this stuff is not, these are not big deals to me. And I want you guys to feel like, wow, they heard me. They spent the extra $80. They did this, and I'm thrilled. Okay. So let us know that. And then Lindsay, I want to draw a distinction, and this is for Lindsay. Emily is my assistant. Emily has nothing official. She has no official capacity as it relates to the the Residents Club Association. So if you have a question on the Residents Club Association, come to me, please. Okay. With the selling of the new pool, how will this financially benefit RC owners? We got through that. Boat club. I'm going to say the question here says the Residents Club solely for the use of Residents Club and Boat Club members is open to everyone. Does it violate covenants, promises, contracts, or other laws or agreements? I'm going to say I answered that. I believe that's related to the pool. It's not written here, but I think that's related to the pool. Lake view units, will they ever get comparable balcony furniture or at least an upgrade to what's there now? I'd put that in the same category as kitchen items. If you have specific things, we need to look at the balcony furniture that's on all 3 units and see if there's any distinction between the level of quality between one or the other. It's not as easy to fix as a Cuisinart or a crock pot because the balcony furniture is quite expensive, but it's something that we need to look at in the same way that we look at interior furnishings. And so I would say if there's something that's subpar about the lake view unit in particular, if it's more wear and tear is worse or the quality is worse than the others, then yes, it should be raised up. But all of them, we need to look at all the units. Any questions about balcony furniture? Okay. Number 12, how are decisions made? Is there a board? If so, who's on it? We'd like to see HOA formed. One, like I said earlier, the HOA is formed. There is a board, but the board consists of me right now. Okay. When we get to one more unit being sold, then I no longer own 50% of the units. Someone's thinking, I just want to buy a unit so that I can kick Grant out, and that would be just fine. Okay. The way it goes is that the right of control, and this is in section 19 of the declaration, gets triggered when I no longer own 50% of the units. I think I have 60 days to call an election, and we can have as many board members as you guys want on the board. The way it works, though, is until we get to 95% units sold, meaning until I have sold the last unit, I have 3 times the voting power as the other board members, and I get to maintain or appoint a majority of the board seats. So I'm still in a position of control. That's not uncommon. I'm looking at the folks that have left here. So it's not uncommon for the developer to hold on to control until the end of the story. I will tell you this, though, and you can ask the folks that are on the Homeowners Association board for Carlton Landing. We've never had a split vote. If we don't agree on something, we talk about it and we kick it around. We don't take action on it. I've not had to use my majority control in that. And I'd like to find common sense solutions for the Residents Club here. And if anybody wants to serve on that board once we sell one more unit, please let us know. Okay. Further on the board composition, after the right of control is gone, you can look at section 5.6, I believe, of the declaration. And then the first vote of the association in the bylaws is referenced, and that might be section 5.6 of the bylaws, then section 6.6B of the bylaws. And section 6.6B lays out how the board composition should be handled and how the first election should happen. And that's on page 13 of the bylaws. Okay. In terms of dumpsters, can there be two? I'm happy. I'm going to put that to Stephen and Lindsay and say, you guys look at that, see where we have room. We just got the parking lot finished and striped, but if there's room for another dumpster, I know in that enclosure there's not room, but we shouldn't have trash overflowing. And so if you can find a solution on the property, please do so. And I'll be happy to hear your recommendation on that. Okay. Is there a pet policy? Stephen has provided me with a draft of the pet policy. I'm not going to hang him out on this. He has done that. And I have not responded. But what I can commit to, so Stephen sent me a draft pet policy. Stephen, I'm looking for it here. Here it is, June 27th. Pet policy that Lindsay put together. Good job, Lindsay. Sorry, I wasn't more responsive on this. You know what I would do before I said, let's have a pet policy? I'd first go to the 21 owners and say, do you guys want a pet policy? I'd go back and say, because I don't want to create a pet policy if other people are allergic to XYZ and most people don't want it. When we started out, we said no to pets because, and I love dogs. I love my pets. I don't love cats. No judgment if you do, but we started out with no pet policy. Say my dogs. Love my dog. Had dogs. Now we got one dog. I'd say if you guys want it, Lindsay, why don't you reach out to all the owners and do a vote? And I'd say if a majority of the owners, like 51% of the owners, if you have 11 owners that want to have a pet policy, then we will create a pet policy. Okay. If you don't have 11 owners that want it, then I'm going to listen to those who don't want it. Okay. All right. Selection process for next year, assigning for a certain unit. The reservation policies will be posted. We will send out a letter. This process, I think, works great. Vicky says people are bringing pets. We need some rules. I hear you, Vicky. I'm not throwing you under the bus there because you put it on the group deal. So I hear you, Vicky. So there needs, and one, you need rules, but you also need enforcement. Okay, so those are two separate things. Anyone can write a rule. How do you enforce it? And this gets back to communication. Who do they call? What does that look like? So we need to get there. Okay.
Grant.
Yes.
Hi, this is Hub.
Hey, Hub.
Finally got on. Sorry. I detected something the last time I was there. Cigarette smoke was extremely bad in a back bedroom. I don't know about a policy there, but man, that was rough.
Yeah, no, there should be none. So if that's a case, yeah, there should be absolutely no cigarette smoke whatsoever. And I think our rule, Lindsay, do you know what the rules state in terms of cigarette or cigar smoke out on the porch? If that's,
I don't know the rule right offhand, but I'm sure it's in that manual, owner's manual or owner.
okay. So we'll look in the owner information booklet, but like I say, Hub, and I'm glad you brought that up. Smoking inside the unit is absolutely forbidden, but we got to be able to enforce it as well. Okay. And so it's one thing, and Lindsay, so I get into the procedure of this. You know, what is the procedure?
That could have been a one-off grant. It could have been a one-off grant. I can't say I ever smelled it before, but I sure did the last time we were there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Hub. And Hub, watch the early video because I know some of the issues we talked
I will.
about were, yeah, I appreciate that.
We will.
Okie doke. Lindsay, I would say look into that. I know that smoking is totally restricted, and I like a cigar every now and then, but with the way the Residence Club is set up and its proximity and how tight those balconies are, I'd be surprised if we have a rule that even allows for smoking on the balcony, because you can have that smoke drift into an air system or an intake or
Right.
something like that.
That's
Okay.
the first time I've heard of it, so I'm kind of
Okay.
shocked, but I'll definitely look
Well,
into
I'm not shocked, but
it.
no, I think we need it. But we need it. So procedurally, how do we deal with that? There needs to be language in it. If it's a rental, it needs to have language. I know that Lake Stay has that in their language. But there needs to be an inspection, and then there needs to be an enforcement that, there's a credit card or something that's kept on file. It's charged, it's assessed. There's a damage fee for cleaning. And I'm happy to make the smoking damage fee excessive and abusive. Okay. So that should be something that we don't have a lot of patience for at all. In terms of the
Grant,
selection. Yeah.
Sorry, this is Rhonda.
Hey, Rhonda.
Go back to what Vicky was saying on the pets. I know cigarette smoke is offensive, but pet urine smell is even more offensive. If people are going to bring pets, the main thing is don't allow them to urinate in the unit, because when we walk in the front door, at least of our unit and veranda, it can be a strong odor.
Okay. Okay.
So we lose rugs, we lose carpet,
I'm with you. So Lindsay, as you're hearing this, just what I would look to is that process whenever somebody checks out. And this goes in, I mean, this is why, like, some people, pets are something people care deeply about. Pets, they want to bring their pet, they want that time at the lake to be shared as a family, and they want their pet who's part of their family to be there. Other people have, my wife can't be in a house that has a cat. Her eyes close up and her throat's scratchy and she just can't do it. So it's something we need to be clear on what people want, and then we need to have clearly defined rules. We got to enforce it then. Okay. So I hear you. We'll let you guys vote on that and see how you want to proceed. In terms of the selection process for next year and assigning weeks, we will send out the letter that lets you pick your scheduled vacations. I would invite, if anyone has a question about the process that we use for reservations, please, I'm telling you, this process that we've used has been in place at the Deer Valley Club since the early 90s. They still use the same procedures. It's the same procedures that we use, same procedures that are used in Esperanza at the Residence Club there, where Elite Alliance is also involved. Same one at Mayakama in the wine country. And so the procedures that we have here are the same procedures that have been used at dozens of facilities for decades. And they've been tested, and I feel really solid about that. That doesn't mean that you're going to get what you want every time, but it does mean that over time, with the rolling wheels of prioritization, that you should get most of what you want, and we should have a pretty high success rate of giving you what you want. As I'm talking about reservations, I want to make one thing clear. I told Stephen today that we will run the reservation policies in the fourth quarter, looking ahead to the 2024 calendar year, or booking year, not the calendar year, but I think it starts on April 1st and goes through March 31st of 2025. We're going to run the reservation for anybody that is in good standing with the association. There are several owners who are way behind on dues, and it's been some time. And so if you are in good standing, if you've paid your dues, you will have the ability to rent. If you do not have your dues paid, then what I've told Stephen is that we are going to deny it. It makes no sense for me that someone who's not paying their dues should be able to take a week from someone who is paying their dues. Because we're in a demand system, if you're not paying your dues, don't expect to come back to Carlton Landing until you get your account brought current. Okay. So we love you. We want you to have a great life, but we won't be making reservations for folks that are not current on their dues for the homeowners association. Okay. Any questions about that? We want to do something that's fair. And if someone's abiding by the policies and paying their dues, we want to, you know, take care of those folks. Can we have a bigger locker for the clubs to store more things out of the
Hey, Grant.
residence? Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna go ahead and show my cards here a little bit. My dues, I might be delinquent, me and Lauren. We had ours auto deducted monthly at some point, and then it stopped. And so it could have, I don't know where that severed. So should I get with Lindsay to reignite that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
the delinquency wasn't intentional, and I'll just,
that's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not calling anybody out, Preston.
I
And
just figured I'd be the one. I'm like, I am delinquent, but it's not intentional. I didn't know how to
I'm with you.
restart that.
So
tonight.
get with Lindsay and she can get it set up. And now I'm gonna say get with Lindsay. Lindsay is the owner communications rep. She's the point of information for questions and comments and such. Appfolio and all the financials are handled by a guy named Drury Roberts. Drury is in charge of Appfolio. Lindsay might do that or Drury might do that. I'm not sure who would get you set up, but Drury's the one that's in charge of processing those accounts receivable and dues charges and all that. So between the two of them, they'll get you set up, Preston. I appreciate
I'll
that.
chase it down. Yeah,
Okay.
appreciate it.
There's a question on, can we have a bigger locker for the clubs to store more things out of the residence? I'm not sure what the clubs mean. Are you talking about golf clubs or are you talking about residence club? Do we know? Is the owner of this question on the call?
Residence Club.
Okay.
So we're talking about like we are talking, I know we got the yellow container, but again, we were talking about like bigger things, you know,
Yes.
blow up
Yeah.
kayaks, all the stuff that comes with those kits, right?
Yes.
That we cart back and forth to the lake.
So here's a logical solution that I would propose. I'm not saying, hey, this is where it stops, but I'm saying the intent for the owner lockers is that you could have more than one, and you could really have as many as you want to pay for. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is what Lindsay and Steven understand, but this was my original idea, is that we would have a certain amount per year. And frankly, I don't even know if we've ever charged anything for these. I'd have to look back and see. But there'd be a certain amount per locker, and that we would have a storage space for that. And that as a service, before your stay, we would bring that locker up to, and you could open it up and you could have family pictures and dishes and some pool toys and stuff that would fit into that locker. And if you wanted multiple lockers, you could have multiple lockers to a point. Okay.
Yep. We were told only one.
Yeah. Well, that didn't come from me, but you can have more than one. But I can't do big things like kayaks and stuff like that. We don't have a place for it. I would offer, and while we're on this, let's talk about tornado shelters as well. We'll get to that. The residence club is what it is, and we have some storage space. And with the lockers, it's not a hard thing for me to say, hey, under the concierge services, let's have a guy go over to, you know, a place where the lockers are stored that's nearby and bring that up to the unit. That's a level of service that we can provide pretty easily. Something like a kayak, something bigger, is outside of that level of service. We don't have additional self-storage or storage units in Carlton Landing, but they do exist in the area. I think the thing that I would suggest is probably looking at the marina and approaching it through the marina. I have other owners in Carlton Landing who'd like to have a kayak storage area in the marina, that maybe we take a few boat slips and we convert those into kayak storage, and they're locked up under the cover on a boat slip. And I'm happy to entertain that, and we could look at that. The other thing is you have kayak rental with Lake Stay Toys, and they relocated the shed. We're working with the Corps of Engineers to close off the cove in front of the Residence Club from the courtesy dock to the north, so that it would only be accessible by paddle boards, kayaks, human powered, vehicles, and all boat traffic that's mechanical or gas powered, electric powered boats would have to stop at the courtesy slips. Okay. So I think the solution is either coming up with kayak storage at the marina, could be kayak storage on the courtesy slips. That's something I'd be happy to work through, but we don't have the ability to do something at the Residence Club. Okay. The issue of tornado shelters. I had a conversation with an owner a while back about the tornado shelters, and I think I did this through Lindsay. Lindsay was fielding this question, and I said, I need you to be crystal clear on this, because it's not only an issue of that we need to be clear on, it's an issue of liability. If we had a tornado that came to Carlton Landing and we had been wishy-washy about this communication at all, it would be detrimental. So you need to let them know that what they purchased is the condo unit as it is today. There is not a tornado shelter that's included with that. What we've called the hidey hole in the office is not a permitted safe room. That's not safe. I make no representation about that being a place that you should hide out in a storm. Okay. It's, it does have concrete walls around it, and it's got, but I can't represent anything about the structural integrity of that space and how it would perform in a storm. Having said that, and in Carlton Landing, homeowners, like, there's been a lot of times that people come and they say, hey, where's our storm shelter? I'm a homeowner, and where's my storm shelter for the community? I'm like, I understand. I put a storm shelter into my house because I was interested in having one. Not that I need it. I like to go out and sit in a lawn chair and watch the storms come through because I'm from Oklahoma, but my wife's from Texas and she thinks everyone dies in tornadoes all the time. So we put a storm shelter in to make her happy. We use it for our wine cellar. We did that because that's what we chose to do when we built the house. But where else, Lindsay, just see Lindsay dying laughing. But where else, like, is there an assumption that outside of your property that is provided? It's not in any other neighborhood. It is in some resorts, but that's not the way the Carlton Landing is set up. So there is a push to do a community safe room that would be connected to the school. That's something that's been in discussions for more than 5 years. It has not happened yet. I'd love to see it happen so that the students would have a place to go. There's a state grant program for communities that want to partner and have matching funds for a community safe room related to the school. I've been a champion of that and would love to see that happen. It has not happened yet. There's one thing that I would point to that's interesting, and this is not me representing, hey, don't worry about it. You don't have any risk. If you live in Oklahoma, you have some risk for a tornado. But if you look at the history of tornadoes, and if you look at Oklahoma tornado map, they have put this in, and all of the history of tornadoes in Oklahoma, as far back as they have the recorded data for this, also going according to the Fujita scale, so F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and going according to tornadoes that cause damage to property or that caused fatalities, shows up on a map in in Oklahoma, and you can see the path of every tornado that's ever gone in Oklahoma. I've looked at this map and I've analyzed it. The lake effect is a real thing. This is not me saying, hey, don't worry, we're never going to have a tornado. But I will tell you that I think that the last time that we had a tornado that resulted in a fatality that was within 20 miles of Carlton Landing, I believe was 1972. Okay. There's something that happens in Eufaula, and I've seen it many times in the 8 years that we live there full time, where a storm is coming in and it parts as it goes around the lake. It's because of the humidity coming from the lake. I don't know what it is. Could be God's grace, but it is it's a real thing. And I never felt at risk that lakes or that tornadoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes were an issue for Carlton Landing. We'll have a good ice storm, and that'll knock us out, and we'll have a straight wind, as we saw when the winds swept through and the shear force winds, just straight line winds, knocked off part of our roof. And that happened a couple months ago. Any questions on tornado shelters or kayak storage?
Yeah, you just jinxed the whole place with that statement.
I've I've said it for years. I think the lake
Yeah.
effect is a real deal. I'm not jinxing
Yeah,
anything.
Kathy, look up the storm. Hey, so my thoughts on that pool structure. Can you tell me if those two restrooms across the way, has that ever been looked at engineering wise as a place we could duck into? Would that be safe? It's ground level if we needed to. Can that be looked at?
Yeah, everything I'm going to say is I'm going to cover my ass.
Yeah, I
Everything
hear
I'm
you.
going to say here.
I
I mean,
hear
I'm not going to say, hey, that's a good idea. Go do that. So I really think as you're talking about storms, what you bought is just the condo,
Right.
and what you choose to do if a storm comes through is your call, you know. So I would I don't have anything else to say other than that. So I know that's, having said that, I know I'm kind of like in a sense I'm kind of joking in a way, but I'm dead serious when I say I've got to be clear as a developer of CLRC that what people bought is the condo. The tornado
Right.
tornado shelter is not part of that. And if I'll tell you what, my house is unlocked a lot of the time. Bruce, anyone, if I'm
Wine
not there
cellar?
and if there's
Got that
room in the
wine
wine
cellar.
cellar, you can't drink my wine, but I will not press charges if you go into my house and hide out in my storm shelter. Okay? If it's unlocked, have at it.
Okay.
So.
Well, if there is a tornado here and we're in residence, the first place to come look for us probably be a pool place, or maybe now it's here.
That's what I told
Send the
Jen. I'm
rescue
like,
team.
I told Jen, hey, forget the bathroom. I'm going to be in the pool, like underground. I'm just enjoying the pool. I'll just be sitting in the pool watching the storm go by. That's what I'd be doing. Okay. Best, most consistent available contact for emergencies. Now, let me put this also to Stephen and Lindsay. If you guys can please create a notice that we can provide so that 24/7 someone can answer a phone. It's more complicated than what I could answer right now, because you get into Lindsay and business hours and after hours and a call center. In the past, we've worked with a call center, but I'm going to put that to Lindsay and Stephen to say, come to me with a recommendation and we'll come up with something that gives 24/7 coverage for homes. Now, Stephen or Lindsay, does that exist already? It used to 6 years ago, but I think it's fallen by the wayside in the turnover of management that we had.
So what I have notified homeowners is we have now the phone system that's the office phone that Nick has set me up on where it comes to my cell phone.
Okay, and I would say that's not the solution, because you need a night off and you need a weekend off. It needs to go to a call center where that's their job to answer the phone after hours. Okay. So let's work that out. Let's put together something that allows you to work a solid 40 and then call it good, and give everyone that information. And it should be automated so that they have one number to call, and that one number automatically goes to someplace. Stephen, Coville, I'll just tell you, we put together a directive with the call center that we've worked with in the past, and I'll get with you on that afterwards, and then we'll give that notice to all the owners here, and we'll give that to you guys within the next 30 days. Okay. Information regarding updates, painting, deep cleaning, repairs, replacing furniture and rugs, etc. That just comes down to Lindsay. That comes to you, giving those updates and finding a way to communicate to everybody across the board. And I would as we put together our communications policy that I mentioned on the very first of this call, we'll include that as well, that, when there's a notice that needs to go out related to construction or related to something, that we'd find a way to communicate that effectively. Okay. There's a question. I've got 2 questions left. Appreciate you guys hanging in here. Speaking of a fitness center, sales literature mentions fitness center amenity. Are there plans for that? Literature also includes indicates the concierge service would be available as well as a bellman. If you need help, let me break those down into 3 things. First, if you need help with furniture or with luggage when you arrive, if you'll call Stephen or Lindsay, and I would say not at any given time, because we don't always have someone available right at that moment, like a bellman, but we're talking about 3 condos. And I think that we could have someone that could handle that if they're given notice a day in advance. I'm going to come, I need some help with this. Great. What time are you going to arrive? Here, boom. We'll have someone here to help you. Okay. I think that's a reasonable thing that we could commit to, and that could accomplish the bellman responsibilities. Concierge service, Lindsay is your concierge. We are putting together a process where we're going to have a reservation center in Carlton Landing. Seth Gebhardt is my new director of community development, and we are going to put together a package that I'll just say, and Lindsay, you can hold me accountable to this, hold Seth accountable to this. By the end of this year, we'll lay out what the reservation center is going to look like in 2024. For anyone that's coming to Carlton Landing, whether it's a short-term rental or a residence club owner's planned vacation stay, prior to that time, prior to them arriving, we're going to find out if they need pre-arrival groceries, if they'd like to make reservations for, different types of activities, if they need a private boat driver, if they want to set up horse riding at Arrowhead Stables, if they want to do a range of different activities, if you want a massage, if you want other events. These are not all services that we are going to provide, but we're going to act as a liaison between local service providers, caterers, food, experiences, vacation services, and create a bundle where everything can be reserved in one place, everything can be paid for in one place. And that's just a service that's provided to the owners. We are going to not charge the owners, and this Residence Club Association will not have to pay anything for that. What we're going to do is create a referral fee from the service providers. Okay. So if someone is providing the pre-approved groceries, you're going to have to pay for the groceries, but you're not going to have to pay for the reservation center as a additional operating expense on the general fund for the Residence Club Association. Okay. So that's coming. It's something we saw that since I got out of the short-term rental business, and some are managing their home by owner, some are with Lake Stay, others are with other groups, Carlton Landing Rentals. And it's kind of just Wild West, and everyone's going in different directions. And we don't have all the information of people that are coming. We don't know if they're having a great experience. We don't know if they're hearing the right information about Carlton Landing. It's kind of just hit and miss. And then people show up and they're like, now what? Now what do I do? And they're missing out on a lot of the experiences that we want them to have available to them when they come to Carlton Landing. So we're going to do that as a reservation center. Okay. That'll take care of that. In terms of the fitness center is an outside third-party group that's operated by a couple homeowners in Carlton Landing. I've heard great things about it, and I've heard disappointing things about it. I think that I've heard that they use the app, and they're able to get in there, and the equipment's great. And I've heard some of the equipment's worn out and needs to be replaced. That's about the extent of what I've heard. My hope is that we would have a community wellness center that would be broader than the fitness center, and it would be down by the lake, and it would include spa services, fitness equipment, kind of a range of holistic health services. And it could also provide a rotating clinic location for someone that's going to do your stitches and staples and stuff on the weekends for the kids that get hurt when they're tubing, or someone, a chiropractor or massage or other things that are coming into Carlton Landing. That is going to be funded, and I will say that is going to be funded because it will happen one day, but it's going to be funded by TIF, and the town's TIF will provide the funds to do that. So it's in a pecking order. If you guys want to see a community wellness center, please contact the mayor and Dominic is the representative of the homeowners association that's on the TIF committee, and Jim Hassenbeck is on there. He's our planning chair and town architect, and I serve on that committee. So those are the 4 members, and Greg Buckley is the town administrative person. If you want to see the wellness center, community wellness center prioritized, then let them know about it, and we'll push for that. But that will take several years to be done. But that's my hope, is that we get to that point. Okay. I think we've got through all the questions. The last question I had, 22, was about board composition and governance, and about financials. And can we get a list of our fellow unit owners? I would say that we make that available on an opt-in basis instead of opt-out. Some people might not want their information shared. If you would like to let your information be shared with other owners in like an ownership directory, then give that information to Lindsay and she will put it into AppFolio and keep it updated as names are provided. So we'll let everyone, we respect your privacy on that, but if you wish to share, we'll be happy to do it. So how are we doing? We made it through 3 minutes in advance of the deadline before everyone turns into a pumpkin. Yeah.
My name is Daniel Schmidt. Thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And this hasn't handled individually, but we are one of the whole unit owners. So I kind of feel I'm not sure where we belong in this. I'm not sure that everybody wants to have 7 votes in the residents club voting going forward. I don't think we have a vote in the homeowners association. So at some point, I'd like to kind of get some clarity, maybe on where we could fit into this.
Sure.
Steven, thank you so much. You guys have been great.
No, I sincerely appreciate you saying that. And I'll comment 2 ways. One, you're absolutely a member in the same way that everybody else is a member here. Okay. The declaration speaks of 2 ways to own units. One is as a whole unit owner, and the other one is as a fractional owner. And there's no superiority and inferiority between those 2. It's 2 different ways to own units, and it's defined in the declaration. And in terms of voting rights, when you get to an opportunity where you can vote, a whole unit owner has 1 whole owner's voting rights, and a fractional owner has 1/7 of that same voting right. And so we put it all together. So I'd say technically that's what the legal documents state. And Lindsay's going to post the declaration so you can read that, get that information. That's what the legal documents state. That's a technical answer. Personally, I just want you to know, if you own in the residence club, whether you're a fractional owner or a whole unit owner, I want everybody to feel welcomed and included. Okay. And so there's no, there's a different level of service. Like when we're talking about operating expenses, if a whole unit owner wants to receive the concierge level of service that a fractional owner does, you are welcome to do that. And then what we would do is we would just charge you for that at the same rate that the fractional owners collectively pay for their unit. Now, if that's too much, then we'd say, well, let's negotiate something that's reasonable based on what level of service that you need. And so I'd say just personally, we want to be common sense about that and relational about that. There's a place where you have to look to the legal documents and you say, what does this state? We're going to operate according to the bylaws. And I'll just tell you, when I wrote that 11 years ago, or 13 years ago, I was so thrilled. No, it wasn't that long. 5 years ago. The declaration for Carlton Landing was 13 years ago. This one I think was 5 or 6 years ago. But I was so thrilled to get that behind me. I hate the legal documents. And so beyond the legal documents, there's a neighborly relationship that we need to always keep in mind. So appreciate you saying that. Let me just say this. If you have other questions, you can go to Lindsay. It will come to me. If any of you see me on the sidewalk, you are welcome to ask me whatever you want. If I'm with my family or if I'm going to the marina, about to go out in the boat, please let me just be a dad. And so I'd ask for that. But no, I just appreciate the civility. I appreciate your understanding, appreciate your grace about the way we've done stuff in the past in terms of communication and lack thereof. And appreciate you guys owning in Carlton Landing. So thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you very much. We're all on our way over to your wine cellar right now, I think. So.
Okay. There's parts of that stuff. Don't drink the nice stuff. If it's dusty, just let it sit. So you guys, thanks a lot.
Appreciate
all
it.
right.
Thanks, Grant.
Take care.